When you're under fire and you're laying there and you know you don't want to get up, but you know you have to get up, because in order to accomplish the mission and in order to save the guy to your left or to your right, you got to do your job, and that means getting up. That's bravery. That's the courage I think those Buffalo Soldiers had.
The Native Americans found that if outnumbered, we would not leave the battlefield. We would stand and fight. And that represented to them the very most ferocious animal in their life, a wounded buffalo. And it was that correlation that brought about the naming of us as the Buffalo Soldiers.
When the Civil War was over, the white soldiers were able to go back to jobs that they have. Blacks didn't have any. So Congress created 10 units, and 6 of them was black. And they sent them out here, because wasn't a whole lot out here at that time, except fights between people next door.
Out here, it was different. And the hardships these men were confronted with brought a new level of understanding and appreciation for what these people had done. They served under the very worst conditions.
They had one of the largest areas to cover in the United States, and they had to ride horses. People say they did 90 miles a day out in the field. They didn't ride all that time. They walked a whole lot of it, because it was bad on your sit-down to be in a saddle that long. They gave them horses that they was probably getting ready to kill, but they made the most out of it.
The Buffalo Soldiers were very much involved with a number of other activities. They would build forts, telegraph lines, roads. They escorted stagecoaches, cattle drives. There were strikes that they got involved in to settle.
They guarded the U.S. mail.
The white officer who was a bird colonel, he wasn't going to come into town and buy no groceries. Huh?
The other issue that we confronted constantly were when, in fact, we went into towns. You had, depending on the location, some real prejudice there, and there were significant fights, sometimes shootings, and a couple of deaths occurred as a result of the confrontations with the very citizens who we were trying to protect.
They didn't want to be told what to do by anybody that was black. Simple as that.
For the black soldier, it was really hard. So they had to defend themselves. And the way they sometimes chose to defend themselves, especially if one of their own may have been thrown in jail and beaten up or whatever, they would come from the post with their carbines and their pistols and get in a confrontation with the local townspeople. At the same time, that prejudice and discrimination could bond them together, and they would depend upon each other even more so.
They were involved very much with bringing peace to the areas that were literally being controlled by outlaws and renegades.
Well, Victorio was an Apache war chief. All he ever wanted to do was go back to Ojo Caliente. He wanted to go home. So Victorio and his band began to raid against the miners, against farms, against ranchers. And the Buffalo Soldiers, along with white cavalry units, were given the mission to chase him down and bring him back.
We were involved with a pitched battle with the Apaches. Seeing a wounded black trooper in my unit under heavy fire, rushed some 200 yards to his aid, put him on my back, and brought him back to safety. The very same thing happened with one of our sergeants. The both of us, several years later, received the Medal of Honor for that action.
They hadn't been stationed out here and served out here, New Mexico might have become a state, but it was going to be a long time later.
The legacy of the Buffalo Soldiers is a legacy of bravery and courage and of doing tough jobs that nobody else would do. They took it from a territory to a state, and that is the important thing I think that all New Mexicans and Americans need to remember.
Having civilization is what caused statehood to come in. You know, people say, well, it's this. No. If it's not civilized, then they're not making no state.